This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so it's 7 o'clock on October 10th, and I'm going to call the council meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, so all council is present. Dave Holland is excused. Do we have any changes to the agenda or any amendments? Hearing none or seeing none, can I get a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Sherry makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Eric seconds. All in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 6-0. All right, consent agenda. We have the check registry, we have the council minutes from 9/28, and then the social media posting for your guys' info through League of Oregon Cities. Do I have any discussion or questions or any changes to the council minutes? If not, I hear a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Eric makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Sherry seconds. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 6-0. Okay.
I did have one question.
Yeah.
The state of Oregon had just said TikTok is now off all state computers. Are we agreeable there with this council also?
Yeah, I don't even have TikTok.
As far as being on city phones?
On city phones or?
Absolutely. There's no reason for that. Yeah.
I didn't hear any, so now is the time for public comments. If you have a public comment, please keep it under 3 to 5 minutes. If it's something that has to do with something on the council agenda, please wait for that time and we'll allow you to speak there. I have one online. Do I have anybody in building? Okay, so I want to, you guys can speak, but also it's really helpful if you guys mark. We now have people mark on the paper if you want to speak for public comment, just so we have a column up type of a thing. So who would like to go first? Doesn't matter who. Okay. Please state your city and name.
Judy John Day. I am reading and submitting this comment to be part of the permanent record. This council received a complaint regarding inappropriate comments made by the mayor of 2023 during the Grant County Fair, and it has been discussed several times without any participation by Mayor Rookstone. The majority, not all, of this council have chosen to take no action. But after reviewing the video of that meeting and the reasons given for your decision, I'm very concerned, and that's why I am submitting this comment. Mr. Laphart, you commented that, quote, "She is new. We all make mistakes, and she is just learning." She is not new. The mayor has been on city council since 2021, so I don't understand how you use that as her excuse. Mr. Bush stated that, quote, "Probably everyone in this room has said something they regret." How can anyone have any idea whether the mayor has any regrets about this because she refused to address the issue, to clarify what she did or didn't do? Did she keep quiet because she feared the results of an investigation and what it might require of her? Or is it that she simply does not have the capacity to admit her mistake and apologize? Either way, it should concern those on the council and the public. Mr. Laphart and Mr. Bush both cautioned the mayor not to respond. In my opinion, that was bad advice, and certainly goes completely against her campaign of transparency in answering public questions. Mr. Phillips said it should just be accepted as a lesson learned. Exactly what lesson was learned by the mayor? It appears to me that the quote, lesson learned, is that you don't have to tell the truth and take responsibility for your actions. And apparently the majority of this council agrees. An expensive investigation should have been an easily avoided option. But instead, more doubt and distrust of this mayor's actions and those that support them will remain. Thank you.
All right, next one.
I'm Beth Stell, and I'm from John Day, and I would kind of like to talk a little bit about some of the discussion that was at last council meeting. There was a lot of lip service paid to we're going to do better, we're going to be more cautious about what we say, we're going to be more respectful to each other, all kinds of what I feel like was lip service and not genuine plans to proceed in a more positive way. In the rest of the meeting, we heard people make references to conferences they've had with an individual that proved a certain viewpoint. We had lectures from council members, some very new council members who haven't even been to a lot of the meetings. And we had one counselor make a joke about duly noted, something that has been so upsetting to the city employees. They actually had hats made that say duly noted because they're so tired of hearing it. And so I'd like to make a suggestion. If you are in fact serious about doing better and being better, then you need to make a plan. You need to make a plan where people can come to you in a public forum and ask a question and receive an answer other than we don't have to answer or duly noted. That does nothing to build the community's trust in you. It does nothing to build the trust between the members of the community. It's no secret that we're almost split 50-50 on how the city of John Day should be conducting business. You need to put aside anything that's happened before today and start making your decisions based on what is the best thing to happen for the citizens of this community. Not based on, well, I don't like the person that came up with that plan or that idea or that grant, so I'm not going to support it. Please come up with a plan where people can talk to you and receive answers. Maybe be at the very beginning of the meeting, you need to have a little time devoted to a town hall format where people can actually feel like you are hearing their concerns. You cannot continue with this kind of policy that seems to have developed. We have 3 people who were elected by a very small minority. We have 3 people that were elected by 4 or 5 people. You need to think about the fact that you are indeed responsible to everyone, not just your supporters. And if you're indeed serious that you're going to do better, show us what your plan is and quit worrying about what happened in the past and how you're not going to support anything that somebody you don't like came up with. Start thinking about us and the welfare of our community. Thank you.
All right, any others in the building? If not, I have one online. Yes. Jim was first and then
Jim Spell, John Day. I like what the previous people spoke about. I have a real simple question. In today's stage of technology, why do we not have microphones around the council members so we can hear what's being said? We have 3 voices that are really loud, and we have a couple of more that are real low. and I think the citizens have a right to hear what's being said. So I don't know what the owl does, that's above my head, but why can't we have speakers for everyone? Last council meeting, Chris said we don't have any speakers. So microphones, microphones. So it's a simple question. I know you don't want to respond to that, but it should go on an agenda sometime and should be addressed so everyone can hear what's being said. Thank you. Go for it, Lucas.
Wait, get it down.
Yes, Louis.
Louis Preventer, John Day. I have two topics. And the first one is, now that the city of John Day has a full council, it may be time for the city to reconsider their involvement with the Regional Rural Revitalization R3 Strategy Consortium and a governmental agreement. The few issues to consider is the consortium was agreed to without the requirements of the unanimous votes against the request of the city of John Day. Understanding the city is hoping to obtain needed funding through this consortium. However, requirements appear to have been changed regarding the breakdown and distribution of available funding, as well as the number of cities involved. Now we're talking 4 cities. You know, I am not convinced that the city realized they are responsible for their share of administrative fees. You know, yes, the city can terminate the agreement in 30 days' notice. However, the city will still have responsibility for the administrative fees up to termination. And as I understand the budget, there's no money budget to pay for any administrative fees, yet there's meetings going on, etc. I am concerned, and I have been for a long time, that this consortium is just the start of another bureaucratic octopus with its tentacles slowly reaching out to control the city and its citizens. As an example, I know there was discussion already for them to take over the URA of the city. So that's just an example. And there is also an appearance of conflict of interest with the consortium's recent hiring of the current managing director for the consortium. And I think the city needs to put this on their agenda and talk about this. My second topic, I just want to share. Today, I choose to share a few thoughts concerning the division and chaos occurring in our community and nation. Many citizens of our cities, counties, states, and country are neglecting their responsibility and disciplines as citizens of America, which is a constitutional republic with carefully conscripted democracy. This has led to a divided country, increased fear, the lack of respect of our elected and appointed representatives and fellow citizens. If we want the liberties and freedoms of being American citizens, we must extend this to all fellow citizens. Citizens have lost their way. Many are buying into viewpoints that crush independent thinking. It is far easier to let others form their opinion. We need to do our own independent thinking and decision making. Independent thinking leads to problem solving, fairness, compassion, self-reliance, and may lead to a little wisdom. Accusing, discrediting, demonizing, and destroying people's life because we may not agree with each other is unacceptable. Our action and sometimes inactions have real life consequences. We don't have to be perfect to be good citizens. However, the welfare of others, community, and country should become as important to us as our own. We all should probably have a code of conduct for the survival of a republic and liberties and the freedoms we all enjoy. Frankly, in our selfish society, we as people may not be strong enough or disciplined enough to maintain the spirit of the American experiment, as well as adherence to the U.S. Constitution. We all have a choice to make. We all have free will. That's what I have to say.
Any others in the building? I have one online. Ben, go ahead.
Good evening. Hopefully you all can hear me. I get a thumbs up. All right. I'd like Benjamin Arif, Straw to Gold. I've worked with the city for a number of years now. Also an Oregon resident. Wanted to share a few thoughts. A number of community members have drawn my attention over the past couple of weeks to several disturbing posts made by Mayor Heather Rockstuhl on social media. It seems the mayor went on a several post long defamatory tirade against me and my company, Straw to Gold. I find this both to be disturbing and highly unprofessional. During our years of work for the city, all proposals and contracts had the scope of work and fees clearly outlined. Nothing was hidden, nothing was done in secret. The John Day City Council reviewed these contracts and approved them. Whether you value Straw to Gold or you don't, this is an indisputable fact. I, along with my colleagues, have come to John Day every quarter and then some over the past couple of years, and each time either myself or a member of my team has given a comprehensive presentation at the council meeting. Every meeting has included time for questions or comments, and all feedback given has been incredibly positive. However, in addition to these accusatory social media posts, and despite our scope of work being concluded and our contract being over, I have found myself inundated by emails and texts from Mayor Rockstuhl demanding reports of my staff hours and endless details about the work we delivered last year and earlier this year. She has now gone as so far to hire the city attorney, Jeremy Green, to formally pursue me and my company. Using the city attorney and your tax dollars in this manner seems to be a waste of public resources. Did the city council approve of the mayor appointing the city attorney to pursue me in this manner? I'm questioning that. This could end up costing myself and the city of John Day greatly. Is this what is best for the city? At this point, it seems like political vendetta and a smear campaign. This is not what I want, and I also don't want my company's good name to be dragged through the mud at the will of one individual, acting alone without the knowledge or support of her peers. This is not a healthy contractor to city dynamic. Where in the city's charter is the mayor authorized to act on their own and pursue legal claims without the council's knowledge? The city of John Day, its citizens, its taxpayers, should not have to carry the burden of a mayor that is acting selfishly and abusing her power. I ask the John Day City Council and the residents of John Day to stand up for your rights. Thank you very much.
All right, anything else? Hearing no other public comments, moving on. Nick with water treatment updates. Oh, there you go.
Hello. Let me just pull up my notes real quick here. Can everybody hear me?
Let the audience know who this is.
So this is Nick with our treatment plant update. Nick Cody, he has been working with Flagline and all of our other wonderful 4,500 people I feel like that we're working with to get the treatment plant going. And he has updates, and everything that update wise is attached to the website for this meeting if you have any further questions about it.
So yeah, each month I provide the update memo. I try to make that first page as simple of a summary as you can get. There are a couple action items that I need from council for the project, and I can kind of explain where we are and what's going on with some of those. For example, the first action is the Flagline contract amendment for USDA application assistance. We're getting pretty close to having that funding application finished, but there's some conversations we need to have with the USDA folks on a technical level that is just beyond me. So I'm asking for the city, and I've already coordinated with Flagline for a small amendment for their contract so they could give me some of that technical engineering assistance as we navigate the last few things with that application. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, do you want to do each one of them individually so that we don't get too much going on at once?
Sure.
Okay. So any questions on that part or any discussion about that?
So just to be clear, it looks like the increase in professional services fees is not to exceed $10,000, or is that total?
So for Flagline, it would be a not to exceed of $5,000 for this particular scope of work. Unless I got a number mixed up in there. Does it say 10?
Looking at
in
amendment
something?
number, professional services agreement, Flagline fee schedule, and just above it, compensation not to exceed 10,000.
Yep.
Is that?
Oh, yep, you're right. That's my mistake. It should be 10,000 on that summary page. Thanks for that catch, Counselor.
Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah. Nick, this is Chris Laphart. Why do we need an amendment?
So we need to formalize it so the grant will pay for it, basically. The Flagline has exceeded all of their, we've paid them all the money, we've contracted them to do work previously. So if we want their assistance, we need to put another contract together with them. And we have an overarching agreement with them for this project. The project just continues to go on, so now they need some more money in their agreement.
And you said grant. What grant are we talking about? Where would this money come from?
So this would be from the Community Development Block Grant.
How much money do we have left in that grant?
I was just working on a budget amendment. I can pull that up pretty quick. Of over 2.2 million. So in that grant is primarily for the next phase of our sewer project, which is going to be the actual final design of all the improvements, to put the construction documents together, and then to procure what we call the wastewater treatment plant engine. So we have $5 million on board for this sewer project specifically. And I've actually reorganized the budget over the last week or two so that the city can claim more upfront costs through your grant rather than the loan. In the past, a lot of those upfront costs were coming out of the loan that's attached to the sewer project. So I've tried to reorganize some things to pay for it through the grant.
Thank you.
I would accept a motion if there's no further discussion.
I'd move that we approve the professional services agreement as amended number 01, Flagline Engineering, not to exceed $10,000.
Okay, Eric makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Edwin seconds. All in favor of approving Flagline contract amendment for not to exceed $10,000, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. All right, number 2.
So this one is a contract amendment for Dakota Consulting Services on the sewer project. I had amendment number 1 in the past that extended the time out to April of this year. It's actually been expired for a couple months, and that got missed in all the shuffling of things. So I basically just need more money on that contract and more time to continue doing much what I'm doing right now to give you guys monthly updates, to keep things moving along, to stay on top of all the different contractors. So that's that item. And if you guys have any more questions about that, happy to answer them.
Nick, this is Chris again. You probably knew this was coming. I noticed you raised your rate from $100 an hour to $125 for doing the exact same thing you were doing. What's going on?
Well, first of all, it's not exactly the same thing I was doing. There used to be a city manager. There used to be someone else who wrote all these reports for you guys every month. Someone that I worked for on this project, and I don't work for anybody on this project really. Now, obviously I do for the council, but on a daily basis, I am managing this project. And on the second point, I think I proposed those rates 4 years ago. So when I did my last amendment, I didn't increase my rates at all. So I just think it's time, based on the different, role I'm taking on the project, plus the time that has, gone by since the original rate.
So our former city manager was doing all this before?
He was doing a lot of it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, he was managing all of the consultants. He was working with the regulatory agencies. He was managing the funding application. He was reading and reviewing reports, putting these, action items together for council. And that's all on me now.
Any other questions or discussion on that one? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I
sorry.
just one correction. There's only 30 days in June, right?
Yes.
30 days in June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's effective until 31 June 2024. So
okay.
it's
Yep.
30 June. Sorry.
You got that, Nick?
Yeah, I'll correct that on my version I send over and sign.
Okay.
Right. And so Eric Bush, so the money that we're agreeing to in this amendment will take us through, you are estimating that this is going to take us through June 30th, 2024 with work that you're doing now?
Correct. I mean, hopefully I'm doing a lot less here soon and things get moving. But it seems like in this project, we cross our fingers and hope, and it doesn't go that way. So this should be plenty to get me through. And I think the agreements, some of these funds expire in the middle of next year, and we're going to have to extend some of our grant agreements again. So, and then at that point, we'll also extend some contracts. So I'm trying not to extend my contract too far past, where even our grant agreements are ending.
Yeah, I understand. That sounds reasonable. Thank you.
I would entertain a motion if there's no other questions.
And I did catch another math error there. It's 30,000 increase and not a $25,000 increase. I apologize on that.
You're gonna resend me all these, correct?
I think it's just the summary on point that I messed the math up on the council action summary section.
Okay. Any?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the professional services agreement amendment 2 for Ducati Consulting LLC.
Second.
Sherry makes the motion, Chris seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. All right, number 3.
So in the next 2 points, these aren't as time sensitive, and I want council to understand these in a deeper level. And Bob Long, who presented last month, at the beginning of the month, is the one who works for CWMH2O and is our hydrogeologist. So, he's the one that proposed this monitoring well and water quality sampling plan that's, over $100,000 plus having to pay a well driller. And all of that work is related to basically starting to implement the monitoring for the new sewer plant. So it's trying to get us moving along that path of where we're actually about to go design this plant and build it out. And the people who will eventually engineer that plant need data from the groundwater and from the surface water that we need to start collecting next year, basically, is the short of it. So, we can have Bob back to talk more about all of this if you guys would like to. I don't want you to feel pressured to pull the trigger on this one, but this will also just come from the grant in the budget that I've kind of reconfigured. I've moved some of these upfront costs to the grant, so that will also be covered by the grant and has been approved by Business Oregon. But just kind of wanted to take council's temperature on this point, whether you wanted me to schedule Bob to come back and talk about all this so you guys can really understand it, or whether you feel comfortable on this one for now.
Nick, this is Chris again. I haven't been on the council that long when this was being talked about, but I thought we've already drilled quite a few monitoring wells. How many more are we gonna have to drill to satisfy DEQ?
You are correct. We have drilled a lot of wells. And so all the things that have been drilled to date were to collect data to get our permit from DEQ, to provide data for the biological assessment, which has been submitted. And then through the submission of the permit and through the submission of the biological assessment, DEQ and the fisheries services have come back with specific things they want monitored for in specific places. And a lot of the last 4 months has honestly been negotiation with them over where to put some of these monitoring wells and where to put the surface water monitoring. If you guys remember the conversation about how they wanted us to monitor on private land, for example, and how that just wasn't going to be feasible. So this plan and this implement monitoring plan is the result of all that discussion, and it'll be in place for probably about 3 years or 4 years of various levels of monitoring. And the hope is that Bob and his team can train some city folks to do this monitoring after the first year, and that they can kind of learn alongside Bob and his team, because it will be about $60,000 to $80,000 a year for 3 or 4 years to do the monitoring of all the water that needs to be done to satisfy DEQ and the fisheries. Basically, they want to make sure your plant doesn't have some sort of unexpected release, in the first couple years, and it's working the way that it's designed and supposed to work.
So in the short answer, Chris, we don't know.
What's new?
Yeah.
The idea with this plan is that DEQ and the services are going to review it and they're going to sign off on it. So once this plan has been, gone through all the final reviews at DEQ and through the fisheries services, there won't be any, but we do still have to get through, that official process. But in the informal process and all of our discussions, this is Bob and his team have gotten to this compromise in this point.
What permit do we have in hand right now? Do we have any permits?
It's in process, and there's a DEQ permit for the treatment plant. I believe it's a WPCF permit. Is Casey in the room?
No.
I was just looking, I'm not an engineer and I haven't been involved in the DEQ permitting. I want to say it's very close to a finalized permit, but there are some things, for example, like the recycled water plan that's a part of with the purple pipe work that HECO's doing that covers one of the discharge one of the discharges for the plant. In addition to DEQ, will have to actually approve the designs and the plans of the treatment plant. But the permit pathway, the way the city can go about doing this, has been approved and signed off on by DEQ.
I think I made mention a couple of meetings ago that I'd like to see a thermometer and where we are on the thermometer. Are we halfway on the thermometer, a quarter of the way?
I was hoping you would ask that because I filled in a new block on the thermometer, and I thought of you this month. We on the construction funding, I feel like we've made a pretty big progress in the last month or two, and I'm hoping in the next month or two that's going to be close to being wrapped up. Likewise with our environmental process, it should officially be initiated this month, and our biological assessment has been finalized and sent off to USDA for USDA to send it off to the services and officially start the clock on our consultation there.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? I would entertain a motion on number 3, or we can table it till the next meeting or the next one if you guys aren't ready.
And this is something that we're going to have to do. And you're comfortable with this, Nick?
I mean, this is what our expert hydrogeologist has put together with, with a lot of conversations with DEQ and with the fish folks. It is unfortunate that there's this monitoring that has to be done. The feedback from our biological and hydrogeological experts is that the city of John Day is jumping through a lot more hoops than a lot of other cities and a lot of other projects. But at a certain point, you have to just try to jump through them and get through them and get to the goal. And we, knock on wood, cross our fingers, feel like we're getting close to getting the thumbs up from the fisheries folks.
I don't see any reason to table this.
I have a motion on the table.
I will put a motion on the table to accept CWM-H2O's monitoring well contractor selection, construction observation, and 1-year water quality sampling.
I have Sherry making the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Eric seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. All right, number 4.
So this is the in-stream water rights transfer package that we talked about last month. I sent some additional information from Bob Long and his team. I wasn't sure if that answered all the questions that the council had, and if, kind of again on that point, if you wanted Bob to come back and answer. He wasn't able to be here tonight, but we could schedule him in the future if you would like that.
I think I was the one who kind of raised the issue, this is Eric Bush, on the water rights question, because I just didn't know enough to really make a judgment on it. I spent some quality time looking into this. Went down to the Water Master. I got a copy of the original records request that was done in 2021 for City of John Day on this, which really didn't help me at all. But I will tell you that I did spend a lot of time with the Water Master, who kind of walked me through this, which was very helpful. And after that, I read the report here, that you put together, and Bob had put together with the information, and I thought he did a really good job consolidating the information I got kind of in raw form from the Water Master into the report. I thought it was done really well. The bottom line up front is, the surface water, our water rights. The only thing I would quibble with on this report is that when we look at period of non-use, the terminology will slip my mind, but there's a 5-year period of non-use, And so, the question will be asked of the water master, is the water eligible for, or permit eligible for, and revocation's not the right word, but it's forfeiture, that's it. And, the answer is going to be yes. Bob offered a couple of strong arguments about how to rebut that in his report, which I didn't get from the water master, and I thought that was very good out of the Oregon Administrative Rules. And to meet the grant requirements, the water rights don't have to be any good. They just have to be in a place where you could argue that they're good. That's the grant requirement. And could we potentially use these surface water rights ourselves someday? Potentially. In a scenario would be like if we were to bring in, if we were in negotiations with some sort of industrial company to come in and set up, and they needed a lot of water, we could negotiate with them for those surface water rights. So that might be an asset we could have. The challenge is we have a water sewer treatment plant that we need to get done. And that is more important than something that is just a theoretical possibility. I'd love to hang on to those water rights, but I think it's more important that we get the project moving forward and we get this application so we can get this grant so the taxpayers here aren't going to have to pay for that portion of the water treatment plant, either in a bond or future fee increases or anything like that. So I think that's the right decision. And any concerns I had last month are settled.
Perfect, thank you.
Eric, what did they say about, I know some of our water rights we have for 1863, some of the oldest in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if we say, nope, we don't want them?
We don't want them?
Yep.
We don't want the water rights?
Yep.
There is a process to voluntarily forfeit your water rights.
Who do they go to?
They just go back to the state. They go away forever.
So the state
You will
has
never
them?
get them back.
The state has them then?
I don't know if the state has them as a water right or they just disappear. But the water master, just in talking with him in general terms, he said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because it's a one-way trip. You give up a water right back to the state voluntarily, it's gone forever. It's a one-way trip. So we still have some other water rights that are out there. He did recommend there are a couple of water rights that are on pieces of land that you can't use water on anymore. Like maybe there's a building there now and it used to be a field. There are a couple of very small examples in John Day. And so he said it would probably be good just to clean those up and maybe go ahead and forfeit those back to the state because you could never use them for anything ever again. But beyond that, again, lesser of two evils. I think they're probably more value to us to be used to help us support obtaining the money for the Woyix water treatment plant than it is for anything we haven't really identified for the future, may or may not ever happen.
So whether we deal with these water rights or not is holding up the process?
Well, if we have some possible funding that we cannot go out for if we don't release these. Funding is.
So the transfer of the water rights was a part of the WRD application for the Purple Pipe money. It has to do, part of the incentives from the Water Resources Department for this grant has to do with preserving in-stream use or, at least in theory, dedicating, water rights to be used in stream versus, pulling them out. So essentially it takes your water rights and dedicates it to the river, right? And says this water right won't be taken out from the river. Thus, over a long period of time, there's at least theoretically more water in the river.
And the way the water master described that is, it really isn't going to have any practical effect because the water's been going into the river all these years anyway, because we haven't been using them.
It's just.
But it's the paperwork piece that is a requirement for the grant, very bureaucratic. But the other pieces too is we would never be able to use those water rights again in the future. So it's a guarantee to the state that water will continue to stay right where it is in the river, where it's been at least the last 20 years.
Any other questions from council?
So in this particular case.
And Nick, correct me to 100% if you think I said anything that's fantasy or fiction, please.
No,
That's,
I think you've spent more time on it than I have, so that sounded good. It made sense.
So right now, the ones that we're dealing with from 1863 are dealing with, one of them's irrigation and livestock.
Mhm.
And if that goes back into the river, which it is already, our livestock people and that irrigate out of the river will not have any loss of water. And the other one is Prairie Woods Industrial and Manufacturing. I don't think we're having manufacturing on that property anymore anyway. But it's now going back into the river for people who use downstream. And the Holstrom ditch is, I guess, the one we're talking about for irrigation and livestock.
one of the things that Eric told me, the water master told me, was that they will actually circle back to him about this and ask him the question, what is the impact?
Okay.
And he will report on impact to us and impact to any other irrigators around, if any. And in his opinion, there would be none. That's what he told me.
Okay, I have a couple questions on the audience. I saw hands up. If you have questions, keep them short, please.
Yeah, Louis Prevention, John Day. My general question is, if you look at the design for the Gateway project, there's a big pond and everything. How is that gonna affect that if you give us those water rights?
So the
Yes.
idea with the idea with that pond, at least initially, is that I'm pretty sure that the plan was to take some of the purple pipe water, some of the reuse water from the treatment plant, and put it over in that pond. So it wouldn't be the idea was never to divert groundwater or surface water out of the river into that artificial wetland. It was to use the water from the reclaimed water from the new treatment plant.
Do you have a question?
Terry Davison, John Day. My question is about the purple pipe itself. It's my understanding, I've only heard of one citizen that was interested in water from the purple pipe, and it's my understanding he specifically said, I'll take it if it's free. Is there anyone out there that's agreed to purchase water from the purple pipe project?
So negotiations, Nick, you want to give an update?
Yeah, negotiations are, I don't know if they're ongoing, but they're planned to occur after the engineers get a good idea of, what this system looks like and how it would actually function throughout the year. Then they'll go to some potential end users around town and have those negotiations and talk about, well, this is what we could actually provide you, this much water, this time of year. And, there's discussions about using storage and, different things like that to control the volume and stuff. So the engineers are working on some of those questions. And then the next step is to have those discussions. I think there's ideas to use it on city parks, and obviously around the Innovation Gateway area, but then also to some other end users around town. But there hasn't been any, commitment, any legal commitment or anything from anyone at this point. But they can't commit because there's not enough information yet.
So when we have the in numbers or an estimate of numbers of what it's going to produce and when it's going to produce, because during different times of the year it'll produce different amounts, then they'll start that negotiation. But there is people who are interested and want to talk negotiations. People and companies. Okay, do I have any other questions? Everybody's comfortable with it? I would entertain a motion.
So would the motion be along the lines of a motion to approve the transfer of the 4 listed water rights in the stream transfer feasibility summary letter?
Yeah, and then authorization to probably sign the transfer clarification letter.
Does that sound right to you, Nick?
Yeah, I would say to authorization maybe for Bob Long and his team to submit the package to WRD, and then authorize any fees. There may be some sort of review fees or something associated with that. Um, I can't hear you all of a sudden. Hold on.
Hear me?
And now I
Hear
can,
us?
yeah. There it is.
Would you have a not to exceed amount on those fees that we could add with that?
Oh, no, I'm not sure.
Okay,
5,000?
But yeah, that sounds like plenty.
so,
It's probably going to
okay,
be, I would imagine it's going to be in the 1,500 at most. It's
so
usually a
what's our
couple
time
hundred.
Nick, what's our time sensitivity on this?
If you guys want more information, I can get more information. It's just been done for a while, so it's ready when you guys are ready. But if there are more questions, then I can get more answers.
I would be ready. I just want to understand what we're authorizing when it comes to additional fees or anything like that before we include that. I mean, I don't have a problem moving to approve here, but authorizing fees is either going, if we're going to incorporate it into a motion, we need to have an amount not to exceed that's reasonable, or we don't include it and we address that piece of it later.
I'd like to ask for consensus to table it till next meeting. Get more.
Okay, we can table it till the next meeting.
And if Aaron or Casey needs to be here to kind of give us some background.
Yeah.
Some more background in case we have more questions.
You okay with that, Nick?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I can figure that out. I'll try to get that figured out.
Thank you. All right, anything else for us from you?
Nope. If there are any other questions on the report, I can answer it, but that's all the feedback I needed from council. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Nick.
you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, adding signers to Bank of Eastern Oregon. So we have 2 new counselors. Currently, the city is functioning with only council being signers on the bank accounts. We sign them here at city council every time. So I would like to have our 2 new council members added as signers so that they can sign if we need them. So any discussion, or I would entertain a motion.
Go ahead,
I can make that a motion.
go
Yeah,
for it.
Motion that we add Eric Bush and Ed Newby to the Bank of Eastern Oregon signer.
To all accounts for the city of
To
John Day.
all accounts.
Okay, Ron makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Sherry seconds. All in favor of adding Edwin Newby and Eric Bush as signers to all accounts for the city of John Day at the Bank of Eastern Oregon, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, 6-0. Sean?
And you might want to let people know there's always 2 signatures.
Yes, 2 signatures on everything. Okay, can you stand up, please, and state your name?
Jim Spell, John Day. How many check signers do we already have?
Well, now it will be 7 because it's all
7
council.
check signers. That's a little excessive, isn't it?
We used to have 5 or 6, but that wasn't any
So if
council.
we're the city manager, we'll have 7.
Nope, city managers do not sign checks. They authorize invoices. We changed that probably 5 months ago when Rick Allen came.
Okay.
The city managers do not sign checks. Our city recorder does not sign checks. Council signs checks. City manager and department heads approve invoices.
So does that mean if there's something, a check needs to be signed that, let's say, that Eric could sign it, or does he have to go through a process
It's
with all
a
the council?
2-person signing for all checks.
So that means Sherry and Eric could sign a check without having council participation. Is that correct?
We do all check signing at city council meetings and we approve them.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Seems acceptable. Thank you.
Yep. Sean McKay, are you on? I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Still can't. You muted, unmuted? I'm gonna start talking and then hopefully you can fix it, or you can try calling in on your phone too, if that will work. You can use the link that I sent you in your email. So 3D print updates, I can give you guys a little bit of an update. We are still at the state permit approval process. It has not
Can you
been
hear me?
approved. Yes, now we can hear you. Perfect.
Okay, great.
All right, Sean, go ahead.
Okay, so update on 3D printing. We are still moving forward with the 3D printing project in John Day. We are currently still going through what has turned out to be about a year-long process with the State Building Code Division to get the plans approved. And this has just turned out to be a much longer process than what we had originally anticipated. It turns out being the first ones to bring this building technique to market, the state's being overly thorough with the process.
When we received the plans from the engineer, was that about the time when we sent them off to the state, if I'm remembering dates?
Yes, the state has had the plans for
So yeah, we got from the engineer, they were supposed to be to us per his contract back in October of last year. They didn't actually get received by the city of John Day until it was February, maybe beginning of March, and then they were sent to the state. So they've had them under review. Sean does have a mock-up in his warehouse in Ontario. Are you back?
Yep, I'm back.
We got the plans from the engineer in probably late February, beginning of March, if I remember dates from that long ago. And the state has had them, but your mock-up or project is in the process as well, and it's just waiting through the paperwork part.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's completely, still with the state. Like I was saying, it's been a much more involved process. We had the original design grant from the city of John Day that covered up to, I think it was $60,000. We've exceeded that by probably another $25,000 and are still incurring cost on the design for this. And so it's just turned out to be a little bigger than we all anticipated, but we definitely see a light at the end of the tunnel, and we expect to have the plans back from the state within the next couple of weeks.
Yes, Chris has a question, Sean.
Sean, this is Chris Laphart. Texas has a full subdivision already built. How come you don't just steal with pride what they've done?
I don't think the plan is there. It's really just the state approving the technical specifications. It has much less to do with design. We've had to go through a process that qualifies this building methodology as comparable to existing methodologies. And so it's been much more of an engineering task than it has been an architectural task.
Tell me if I'm wrong, Sean, but if we don't go through this process with the state, then any future homes that could be built wouldn't be able to get homeowners insurance, wouldn't be able to get loans, it wouldn't be a home in the state's eyes, correct? So we can't just go steal Texas or steal California's idea. we have to get it approved for the state of Oregon to be a home in the state of Oregon, correct?
Yes, I mean, anything that we're building, has to follow the same rules for obtaining a building permit, being able to get a certificate of occupancy. I mean, that's the whole idea behind doing what we're doing, is that this will be a usable building technique, a validated means and method of construction.
So my understanding is this is first for Oregon, so I assume it's the Department of State Building Codes that's dealing with this?
That's correct. And the building code division is being very helpful. They're very solution oriented with their approach to this. It's again just being the first building using this type of building technique in the state. Everybody's really covering their bases, and it's been a front-loaded process, but we'll be cleared to build multiple structures using this building technique.
All right, thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, so there was no action needed on that. It was more just to give you guys an update. It's been a while since we've talked about 3D printed. And Sean and everybody has been working very hard on it. So I just wanted to bring an update to council. Sherry asked for it. So now we are on to the greenhouse update. Oh, yes, sorry.
Francis Preston from Troy City. So did I understand correctly that they've gone over budget? They originally started with 65,000 and now
60,000.
And so now they're over, so there's not a problem with the overage?
To date, the city has not paid the overage. We've only paid the $60,000 that the grant was for. So far right now, Sean's company is covering that extra.
So, but could the city pay the overage?
That would have to be a discussion with council. But
so
the
how
grant,
does Sean feel about all that?
Sean, do you want to comment on that or no?
Sure. Again, we've carried this project for about a year longer than we've anticipated.
He just lost. We lost him. So, yes, the loan or the grant, we have actually not been paid back for. Rob and I found the grant information. So we're getting that funded, but we have not been reimbursed for that grant. It was Rick Allen was supposed to process that paperwork when he was city manager, and it didn't happen. We found it through some emails and training and stuff like that. So we are going to be getting that money coming back. But the $60,000 was paid to the engineer that created the plans, and that's what has been paid out of the city so far. If he comes back, we'll let him answer. Sorry.
Sounds like a little bit of a can of worms, a little bit.
All right, so greenhouse update. I'm bringing this back to you guys because I need some kind of direction. I need to know what council wants to do. I brought a appraisal back a couple months ago to you guys. Our city attorney has recommended that we get an appraisal per the ORS 217.725 and the city adopted ordinance number 21-192-03 concerning the disposal of real property. And item number 2 of that step says the city manager must first obtain an appraisal or other evidence of real property market value. This may include broker price options. Sean and myself contacted as many people as we could find and think of in the entire United States that there's just no comparable of any sort. So after talking with legal counsel on what the next step would be, he says that the next step would have to be an appraisal. So if we want to possibly get a contract in place for the greenhouse and get it sold, because no contract to date in Jeremy Greens, any work has been put together with the city attorney for the greenhouse sale. It has been talked about, council talked about it, it was supposed to go in front of legal review, it never went to legal review per Jeremy Green. Yesterday, he told me that. So, to date, we have not had a contract put in front of anybody. We have some costs that have been able to find with help. The city cost so far that we have paid between grants and other things and loans, the grand total for the building and all equipment that were put into during construction was $607,286.01. It's a bundle of invoices, and with the net book value with depreciation being at $576,921.71. This came from Anabas on July 26th. The balance of the loan after the last payment made December 22nd is $306,218.72. So that is what the city of John Day currently owes on the greenhouse, what we have to pay. And then we've also spent, to be able to possibly get an appraisal, we had to spend $4,565 on the land partition that was completed by Mike Springer after my request in March of 2023, because that had also not been done. So Aaron Steele appraisal, I called as many appraisers as I could find, and Aaron Steele appraisal, who has done other work for the city of John Day, was the only one to even give us an offer. He is saying not to exceed $4,000 for the appraisal, and he believes he could have a 30-day report. He currently is looking at not being able to have us a report until probably the end of November, due to the fact that he's got so much work going on. And this was back in July when we originally got this from him. And so it would probably be the end of November, but hopefully by end of this year, we would have an appraisal and we could start talking contract. And if someone would like to lease the building, we can lease it only for the loan amount, which is $24,000 a year payment. But if someone would like to purchase it, that's what we would need the appraisal for. And the contract would have a yearly lease as well as a buyout option.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we're at with this. I have been having a ton of people in the community asking what's going on with the greenhouse. Why are we not moving forward? I need council to tell me what we would like to do next.
Just a question. So what did we do to reach out to, did we just kind of call around to different appraisers? Or did we do some sort of?
I didn't do an RFP. So if we want to do an RFP and I can submit that and we can do that process. Sean had a handful of people that he thought might have. So I called a guy in Portland. I called a guy in Illinois. I called a guy in Kentucky. The place in Portland gave me a couple more numbers that I called of possibilities. And
so the reason I'm asking the question is, I am, first of all, just to clear, I think we should sell it, and I think we should get it back on the tax rolls.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, not only do we not have a debt to service, we can have taxes coming in from the whatever contributing private enterprise wants to go in there and make something of that.
Yep.
There's that. But when it comes to appraisals, the challenge is there are, like you already said, there's no comps. So there are some appraisers that are really good at doing what they call that I listened to this on a radio show, I'm sorry, okay, but I was intrigued by it. It's a complex appraisal when you have no comps. And it's and so there's certain appraisers that are especially trained to do these complex appraisals. And one is Beacon Appraisals out of Redmond. And the only reason I know this is because I have a similar personal situation, but so I'm not saying, it's just a suggestion if we want to get a comparison, but short of that, I'm all for moving forward with the appraisal.
I have the list that I called at City Hall,
Okay.
But I can definitely, we can table this till next meeting. I can try to get a hold of these people if I didn't and see if they're able to. And I just wanted to bring it to council. We have currently, we owe in December another $24,000, and our loan amount right now to date is $306,218. So
well, it won't be sold before the end of the year anyway. So.
We do need to move on.
Yes.
So if council would like me to, yeah, go ahead.
A quick question. You mentioned you spent $4,000 already dealing with this.
$4,000 for the replat, because we had to have that to even start the process.
Who gave you permission to do that?
Rick Allen and, Rick Allen worked with Mike Springer.
Okay.
It was in March of 23.
According to our city charter, only the city manager has the right to do that.
That would have been Rick Allen.
Okay, so right now, we have no city manager, so we cannot go out for an appraisal without a city manager.
If council approves it, council can approve it. Yes, they can.
How can you do that? It's against the city charter. We don't have a city manager.
Chris, there is a resolution that was passed on January 11th that gave some acting city manager authorities, because we would not be functioning right now if we did not have these authorities. But that is why I'm bringing it to council to get it approved.
I say, go ahead and contact that other
Okay, we can.
appraiser, see what they come in at, and let's get this moving.
Okay, I can bring it back to next council meeting.
So we're gonna table it.
Yep, we'll table it.
I want to get rid of this baby.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think we can lease it right now until we get things moving. And then at least cover the costs and then move ahead. But I wasn't here when that resolution was made. I need to go back.
Yeah,
Yes, visit it.
Yeah.
Neither you or I.
I just heard about it.
Yeah.
It is available at City Hall if you would like to get a copy of it. Okay, so we are tabling the greenhouse appraisal. I'll try to find that number and call Beacon. And then hopefully we have 2 appraisals to look at and we can make a decision at the next one. Okay, hold on, I'm getting there. Any other discussion before we have public comment? Okay, stand
My
up.
question is regarding the greenhouse.
Okay, so will you state your city name, please?
Judy John Day. Some time ago, I don't remember the time frame, but it's been a long time, there was someone who was interested. I don't know how far along the process was in leasing the greenhouse. What happened to that? Why did that go away and why? I don't remember.
So I looked back through minutes because I remember the discussion coming to council, and council discussed it and then gave Quorum, was our current city manager at that time. Council gave him authorization to go and start negotiating and looking at contract with the city attorney, and it never went that far, is what the city attorney has told me, is he is to date never done a contract of any kind or any kind of negotiations.
So the person that showed the interest went away?
The person is still interested and is still in communication with the city on a bi-weekly basis. But Quorum Ketchum was the city manager at the time, and council gave him authorization to start the process of creating a contract for that lease, and it never went there. And I cannot speak as to why, because I can't find record of it.
I guess that leads me then to, it seems like just in your discussion just now, what you're talking about doing doesn't include him at all.
It does include him.
Sean. That's Sean. She's been.
Yeah. He's been.
I don't think we made a final decision, if I understand correctly. It's still, I expressed my desires. It's still an option to lease it, I think. But if we want to have our options on the table, I think this is pretty.
So after reviewing the minutes from that meeting when council talked about it, we had a lease option with an option to buy. Because if the person, whoever may be, wants to do things in there that are not approved through the current loan that we have, then they would have to buy it outright.
So I was just confused about what had happened to that person. And then I guess my other comment leads back to something Mr. Laphart said. As you were talking, I made a little note in my notebook. Are you all 100% confident that the mayor's action is actually within the scope of what she should be doing?
Which action are you talking about?
Everything that she just described. Are you comfortable that it truly falls under that resolution?
Yes.
That's not on this agenda item, but we can discuss it in another meeting if you guys would like. Any other discussion? I will get that appraisal information. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Shannon Adair, John Day. I was on council when all of that happened. I do not have a photographic memory, so I don't recall numbers or anything off the top of my head, but I do know that, just some questions for you guys to think about. It was a lease with an option to buy. The goal was that the city be able to get rid of the greenhouse for what we still owed on it, and not, I mean, we wanted to be able to move that forward and have it be used in the city. People loved it when it was going. We wanted to see that happen again. And I know that it had to be created as its own lot because it was part of the entire piece that was purchased. So potentially, I mean, as far as the contractor agreement, I would think it'd be hard to actually draw the physical one up if you didn't have that separated out and have those lot lines. So that's just a thought. I would have to, I don't recall. The other thing to think about is if you're going to go do an appraisal is if your appraisal comes back, I don't know what the amount was that was agreed on. I mean, again, this is just something for you guys to think about. If they come back and it says, well, the greenhouse is actually worth $600,000. And Sean says, I don't want to do it for that. And now we have this $600,000 greenhouse sitting there. What is the goal? I guess I would want you guys to decide, what is the goal of the city in selling or leasing the greenhouse with the option to buy? And that's what I have to say on that. I also know that at some point, or my question would be, was Sean billed? Because it was a $24,000 lease with an option to buy payment. And I believe he was billed for that. So I'm not sure how he got billed for that without an agreement. So questions, that's, and I don't know if you can answer them here or need to look it up, but.
Yeah, I remember all of that, like the lease to buy, all that kind of, and I personally don't want to keep it on our books either. I would like somebody to be using it. I hate seeing it empty. I hate seeing it dark. I like seeing it lit up. And we're not trying to make a ton of money. That was never the goal when we talked about it back in October, November-ish time. I just know that we have rules and regulations to follow when it comes to selling private or public property. And so we need to follow those rules that we created. And so that is where it has been recommended that we do this approach. But it also could, like she said, could come back as $600,000 and then we have to decide what to do from there. But at least if we have it, we've done our due diligence. And then if council wants to open it up for a bid process, I mean, like however council wants to do it, there's no telling the future until we do it. So, but then also the billing out thing was a discussion with Rick Allen and the budget committee, or the budget group, which was Anna and Dave and myself. And they said, create an invoice. He has a key. He's had a key since last summer. Someone said in the meeting. And so they created the invoice and billed him out. He has not paid anything to date to the city of John Day. We are not sending him reminders for the invoice. It was sent one time. And that was a discussion between our prior city recorder and our city manager at the time.
iPhone.
Yeah.
Shannon Adair, John Day. Question about the appraisal requirement. Did the ordinance, I know the ordinance we passed in 2021 said that an appraisal did not have to be, city manager did not have to go out for bid or appraisal in that ordinance. Is that different on this piece of property?
It says steps to dispose of city-owned real property under the ordinance.
Which ordinance?
21-192-03. So this must have been passed in 21, I'm assuming, because that's how the 21 comes into it, because like the first two numbers of the year when we do this, I think. Point number 2, the city manager must first obtain an appraisal or other evidence of real property market value. This may include a broker price option.
Okay, so I think that is not accurate. I mean,
okay, this came from Jeremy Green's office, so if it's not accurate.
But the ordinance was passed. Okay. I've been dealing with this for a long time. An ordinance was passed that specifically said that the city manager could sell without that. That sounds like the general ordinance that the state puts out for cities.
Upon recommendation of the city manager, the council may, but is not required to hold a hearing to provide interested parties an opportunity to comment prior to offering real property for sale. Upon repeat of the appraisal or any other evidence of market, the council must determine whether the offer of a real property of the sale or transfer. The council may consider such information the council deems necessary to establish a minimum acceptable transfer.
So that's just not the ordinance that I've been reading. That's the only, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I just know that I would like for council to look at that ordinance that was passed in January of 2021.
Okay.
Because that is not what we've been reading.
We've got time to do that.
Yes.
Frances Preston from Prairie City. So I understand that you're tabling the discussion on the greenhouse, but are you proceeding with council on the lease? To write up the requirements for the lease? Thank you.
Everything is being tabled until next meeting. So no one is moving forward with the greenhouse at this time. All right. Any other questions? Okay, city manager updates. So we had our meet and greet last Friday before interviews. We had 2 candidates in person for the meet and greet and 1 candidate that was not able to make it, but virtually had their interview remotely. And then we had 1 candidate that did not end up showing up after we invited. So meet and greet probably had 30-ish people, I would say, give or take. They were able to talk with the 2 that were there and give their feedback to council on a piece of paper that they liked, didn't like, questions. Also feedback on the other 2. We held interviews that day, and that's where we're at. We had an executive session right before this one to discuss some other further things into that, and I will open the floor for a discussion. How did everybody feel about the meet and greet?
I thought it was great.
It was very town hall-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a recommendation that the consulting firm had. They've done it before, and I would have loved to have had all of them here, obviously, for in person, but we can only do what we can do to get them here, and one of the candidates had prior commitments that they could not get away from, so.
I really enjoyed reading the comments from people that had some pretty good points.
They did. I think it was a good approach. Hold on. Any other discussion? Okay, I would open the floor for comments, questions.
Jim Spell, John Day. So you had the interviews, we did the meet and greet. I thought that was helpful. You've had executive session. You've not hired, so I'm assuming you're not hiring either one of those.
We have not said that at all, actually. So, thank you.
You haven't said what you did in the executive session.
Okay, thank you.
What did you do in the executive session?
Jim, we can't.
It's an executive session.
It's
We
an
can't-
No, you could come back right now and say, we decided we're not gonna hire
This
anyone.
discussion is not done, Jim.
We're about ready to.
Oh, you're about to.
Yeah,
So I'll wait on that, thank you.
okay,
I'm not the only one asking that question.
all right. Any other comments?
Can I make a motion?
You may make a motion.
I move the council approves GPM Consulting to continue to discuss contract negotiation with potential city manager candidates.
Sherry makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Eric seconds. All in favor?
Discussion first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I'm sure people are going to ask, how come you don't announce the person's name? I guess we could, but these people are still employed. And I don't know if their employer is aware that they're applying for a job or not. So we need to protect their confidentiality. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay, no, hold on.
Can I just ask?
Hold
you
on,
haven't
please.
said
Hold on. We're
that
gonna continue.
He said you were talking with
Hold
more
on,
people.
Beth, please wait.
We got
Beth,
two.
stop.
Heather, stop.
No, Beth, you will
Guys
wait
are
to be
not
called
being
on.
Clear. You need to say that.
You are out of order and you need to be quiet, please. I will call on you when I am done. Thank you.
Two different
Okay.
stories.
So, thank you for that clarification. We have a motion and we have a second, but let's further discuss before we got rudely interrupted on the floor.
I think Sherry's motion was a little vague.
Okay. We can amend that motion.
Yeah, we're offering a contract to one individual out of the 3 that we interviewed.
Thank you. That's not what she said.
Okay, well, now maybe you want to,
I can change
Okay.
the motion.
it's okay to do.
I move the council approves GPM Consulting to continue to discuss contract negotiations with a potential city manager candidate
Of the 3 that we interviewed.
of the 3 that we interviewed.
Thank you.
Okay, so Sherry made that amendment, a motion. Eric, are you good with seconding that still?
I'm second.
Okay, any other discussion? Any questions on the floor?
Do you understand?
Stand
why
up,
we had
please, and state your
questions?
name.
My name is Beth Spell. Do you understand why it sounded to us like you were not proceeding with anybody that you interviewed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so that's why we were confused.
Okay.
And that's why we ask you guys to please be
Okay.
more clear.
Beth, though, there is a point of order in this meeting, and you cannot just blurt out whenever you feel like, okay, so.
I
please-
understand
Okay,
that,
thank
Heather,
you.
but do you understand
Yes,
how
I do, Beth.
frustrating it is to
Yes.
sit here?
Thank
You
you.
guys know, and we're hearing that you're going on to more interviews. And that's not what I
That's
meant
not at
for
all
us to
what we
hear.
said.
That
Okay, thank
is
you.
what you
Okay,
said.
thank
No,
you.
that's not what I said.
That is
That is
not what
what
was
Sherry
said.
said.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Judy, stand up, state your name and city.
John Day, can you give us any kind of, I'm sure you must know this, any kind of a time frame when this process will be done? Have you set a time limit on it? I hope.
We hope to have it by the next council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion from Sherry, a second from Eric. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Council, have any additional comments? Anything further?
I have nothing at the request of one of the.
Can't hear you, Sherry.
Speak up.
Speak up. I can't hear you.
At the request of one of our constituents, I think we need to review the R3 at our next council meeting. I encourage all councilors to read through the contract, the latest contract, to fully understand what is going on with that.
Okay, I can put it on the next agenda.
Thank you.
I'll just let you guys know what I have from this meeting for next agenda. So we can discuss microphone and speaker idea. I have R3. I have the in-stream transfer. I have the greenhouse appraisals. So,
I like the idea of additional town halls.
yeah,
Maybe at the same time of the council meeting. I'm not sure that's the best way to do it, but I thought that was a great suggestion.
we can discuss that next time, maybe of picking a couple dates.
We had that one and I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And I believe the meet and greet should take place after the candidate is hired, so that people can actually meet and greet them and then ask questions.
That's in the works as well. I'm sure we'll do another meet and greet when we have a candidate.
I've never been through one like we did last time. So,
None of us have. It was an
I mean,
idea.
in all the years I've ever hired an executive, I've never had before the person's actually hired. So,
Yeah.
and usually announce ahead of time who's in the running too. So, yeah. And one quick question, what's the rest area sign? What's the update?
Casey's not here
Casey's
to
not
give
here.
that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Does it take that long to get a post and a sign?
If you would like to reach out to Casey or I can.
I can have it.
Okay. Casey, he's just not here. I know that we gave him authorization and I believe it was ordered already.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Are we gonna have anybody from R3, the executive committee there, or anybody that can help answer our questions we might have? Not board members, but maybe the executive director?
I can reach out to Catalyst and see if they would like to be involved if whatever discussion happens.
I think it would be important to.
I'm not sure what questions I have to I'd like to see the new contractors.
So it's all also, just so you know, all the agendas and every attachments is on our city website. I add everything to our city website for R3. So everything to date has been put on our city website for R3, so you can look through there.
Thank you.
And Burns, I believe, can also get you audio from the meetings as well, as they keep recordings of those if you'd like to request them. Anything further? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Heather,
Yes, sorry.
I would like to apologize for losing my cool. I understand, but it was very frustrating. I'm sorry, Sherry, that
Thank you.
I was hearing two different stories in between.
It's fine. It's fine,
It
just as
happens.
long as we got it straightened out.
Yeah. Okay, I would entertain a motion at 8:31 to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Eric makes the motion. Do I hear a second? Ron seconds. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
I
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.